A big celebration it was for North Korea as it marked 69 years of its founding with a floral tribute of its former leaders. It appeared they had more reason to celebrate as just a couple of weeks ago, the country carried out its 6th nuclear test, despite warnings from the United Nations Security Council and appeals by other UN member states that it end its nuclear development. The celebration consisted of a floral tribute to former leaders. Footage aired on state-run television Kt3 showed a large number of people, including students and soldiers, offering flowers to the statues of late founder Kim Il-sung and late leader Kim Il-jong, Jong-un's father. A flower basket bearing Kim Jong-un's name was also offered as part of the celebrations.
Here she is
A couple of weeks ago, the state broadcaster, through its popular 74-year-old grandmother newscaster, announced the country's hydrogen bomb test was a perfect success. After an emergency meeting of the UN Security Council, in which countries condemned North Korea's action and called for the Council to take stricter, more effective approach, neighboring South Korea's President Moon Jae-in held a meeting with Russian President Vladimir Putin for talks on how to resolve the crisis. The leaders met on the sidelines of an economic summit in the Russian far eastern city of Vladivostok. President Putin said it was not possible to resolve the North Korea crisis with just sanctions and pressure alone. Before then, Putin had warned that imposing tougher sanctions on North Korea over its nuclear program would not change the leadership in Pyongyang, but could lead to large-scale human suffering. Speaking after a BRICS summit in China, President Putin also warned against further ramping up military hysteria around North Korea, saying that could lead to global catastrophe. Later in the week, he said crisis around North Korea could be resolved by diplomatic means, and again, that whipping up military hysteria around the North Korea crisis was counterproductive, adding that Pyongyang would not end its nuclear and missile programs because it views them as its only means of self-defense. Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov said it was too early to draw conclusions about the final form of a UN resolution on North Korea. US President Donald Trump, who's kept up rhetoric with North Korea's leader Kim Jong-un, says military action against North Korea was an option, but would not be his first. Speaking during a news conference with Kuwait's Sheikh Sabah al-Ahmad al-Jaber al-Sabah, President Trump said he would prefer to avoid military action to deal with North Korea's threat.
Military action would certainly be an option. Is it inevitable? Nothing's inevitable. It would be great if something else could be worked out. We would have to look at all of the details, all of the facts, but we've had presidents for 25 years now. They've been talking, and the day after an agreement is reached, new work begins in North Korea, continuation on nuclear. So I would prefer not going the route of the military, but it's something certainly that could happen.
The U.S. government had made a few suggestions to the UN concerning more sanctions against North Korea, and even German Chancellor Angela Merkel says more sanctions are urgently needed.
Im asiatischen Raum, wo die Nukleartests
The Mexican government declared the North Korean ambassador to Mexico persona non grata in protest at the country's nuclear tests, ordering him to leave within 72 hours. However, the foreign ministry said President Enrique Peña Nieto's government was not breaking diplomatic ties with the country. Meanwhile, EU foreign ministers gathered at an informal summit on Friday to discuss North Korea's nuclear tests. On Thursday, they agreed to impose further sanctions as part of international pressure following Pyongyang's largest nuclear test to date.
And the last one. Thank you. That's all.
China is in talks with the U.S., while Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe says Japan will do its utmost In cooperation with the United States, it would defend itself against missiles fired by North Korea and increase its missile defense capabilities.
昨年の9月